So in my last video, I talked about pre-contemplation. This is when you're in a stage of denial. You're not even acknowledging or recognizing that there's anything in your life that needs to change. But what if something starts to shift and you start to acknowledge, you know what? Maybe there is something I got to change in my life. Maybe there is something I need to do differently. Well, just the fact that you're thinking about change means you're starting to contemplate it, and therefore are now in this second stage of change known as contemplation. But the thing is, a lot of times when we are in this stage, we're still ambivalent about change. In other words, we want to change, but we're still unsure because, well, what if the costs are too high? Well, I'm going to give you a strategy on how you can move through this stage of ambivalence. What do you do when you're in this stage of ambivalence and you're looking to make a change, but you're still not sure if whether or not you should follow through with it? Well, I recommend you do something that you've probably done before. It's quite simple. And if not, well, here's a good strategy in case you're ever at another point in your life where you got to make some kind of a decision. You're not sure what to choose. I just do a pros and cons list. But in the middle, you're going to put another line. Now, I do a lot of work in addictions. So this is an activity I'll do with people who perhaps, let's say, have some serious alcohol issues or drug issues or perhaps gambling issues. And what you'll do here, and I'll just take alcohol as an example, is I'll just put here the behavior, which is drinking. But also down here, you want to put not drinking. So in other words, what are the pros and cons of continuing to do what you're doing? But also then what are the pros and cons of stopping and changing? So a lot of times, for example, people will say, you get a good buzz from drinking. Maybe you feel a little more confident. You might start to socialize more when you're under the influence. A lot of times people will drink to escape some bad memories, escape traumas. And let's start looking at the cons. Well, cons is that it'll cost money. A lot of times you end up with a hangover. You probably get into some arguments with loved ones. And you might even lose your job, or perhaps you get some legal issues. Okay. And down here, well, what are the benefits of not drinking? Well, you get to save some money. And a lot of times, most of the time, the benefits of not doing the behavior are different than the cons of doing the behavior. So you'll save money. Perhaps you'll feel a lot physically better. Fewer arguments. You'll have an improvement likely in your relationships. But what are the cons of not drinking? Well, the reality is you might lose some friends initially, but you might have some very supportive friends as well who completely understand and are quite proud of you for doing this behavior. You'd be surprised around this one. This is oftentimes not a consequence of changing. But also, one of the cons is you might start to feel bored. The other thing is you might start to recognize a lot of uncomfortable emotions that you were masking because of this behavior, and so forth. So what you want to do is look at the pros and cons of the current state you're in, but also looking at the pros and cons of changing. Okay, so now you have your pros and cons list, but what do you do next? So this next piece I find very useful, which is to actually circle the things that are very important to you in your life, the things that you value. So perhaps you value socialization. Perhaps you value, feeling confident. But you also value the fact that you can save money. You don't want to get into a hangover. You don't want any more arguments in your life. You like your job. You don't want to jeopardize your job. You don't want to get into legal issues. Down here, you feel better. You'd love to have an improvement in your relationships. You'll have fewer arguments, more presence in your relationships. You'll get to save money. And down here, well, maybe, dealing with boredom or losing friends, that's an important one for a lot of people. Well, for everyone, I would say. So here you actually get to see the kinds of things that are important to you. And this will give you some more clarity, and it can really help to shift you towards this next stage of change. But the other benefit of this is that you actually get to see in front of you what's important to you. You get to see, what is this cost of the way you're currently living your life, the current behaviors, and the potential that you have for changing and improving your life. You actually get to see it more concretely on paper. The reality is that we can remain in this contemplative state of change for like years and sometimes an entire lifetime. We think about change, but we never find the courage or the strategies to move to the next stage of actually acting on our desires of change. Well, I hope this tip helps with your movement towards change, your balance, and your growth. Take care.